Greetings, this is Marcus Sibley. I am the Environmental and Climate Justice Chairman for the New Jersey State Conference NAACP. It is my pleasure to have the Deputy Commissioner from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Her department is the Environmental Justice and Equity Division. We're so excited to have Olivia Glenn with us today. I have the screen up where you can see right from the DEP website. She's a part of the senior staff, so we're very honored to have Deputy Commissioner Glenn today. So Deputy Commissioner, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, and thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today.
Okay, this is great. I know that you're a busy person, and I have a few minutes, so I want to get right into the questioning.
Sounds great.
We are very interested in showing the connections between our fight and the fight of our governing bodies, and see if there are any points of intersection. So could you give us an understanding of what environmental justice means from the lens of the Department of Environmental Protection?
Yes, absolutely. We're privileged to live in a state with a governor who has made environmental justice one of his highest priorities. From his first 100 days in office, he issued an executive order focused on environmental justice. That is Executive Order 23 for anyone who may want to peruse it. And that executive order set the framework for us to continue our already previously existing Environmental Justice Advisory Council. It also directed the establishment of an Environmental Justice Interagency Council to foster a greater engagement across all state departments and agencies and working collaboratively to further environmental justice efforts. And finally, that executive order directed the Department of Environmental Protection to create a guidance document that would just pretty much marshal the shared process that we were going to take as all of state government to further environmental justice for our communities. As a complement to that executive order, a year ago to this very day, this very weekend, on September 18th of last year, Governor Murphy signed the nation's first environmental justice law. And in that law, it gives us the opportunity to look at certain classes of permits and facilities that come into the department, and gives us the ability to deny or put conditions on certain types of permits based on communities being overburdened. So from our analysis, we've identified portions of 331 municipalities in the state that have overburdened communities within their borders. And I can share that in the chat. I'm sure that everyone can probably see that pop up. And so I'm going to put it here so everyone can see the suite of resources that we have on our page. So that's our Office of Environmental Justice website. And on that page, you will find the overburdened communities map. So you can literally see if you live within the boundaries of an overburdened community. So in speaking directly to how do we define environmental justice, for the work that we do, we certainly adopt the definition that has been in place with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for several dozen years now. And just simply stated, that definition is, and I quote, the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So that definition certainly underscores our work, but I will note that from an approach perspective, we also consider that it's not just the presence of environmental and public health stressors, it's also the absence or lack of environmental and public health benefits, like parks, like tree canopy, that help mitigate some of the quality of life issues that exist in our communities. And just make it better, more breathable and livable for everybody. So from the approach of the daily work, we approach it from three lenses. One, taking a hard look at ourselves. Secondly, helping to shape others. And that's that work that we do across departments and agencies. And the third is to really take a look at how we look at helping to build capacity within our communities.
Okay, and that's wonderful, and we're glad that you guys have really defined what the work is, so that there's no confusion, there's no curiosity. It's in your framework, what the approach is. So the next question would be, because our constituents, we often feel like polluting agencies, polluting industries, they do what they want because they know they can do what they want. And we were always curious about, from a regulatory standpoint, what types of initiatives are in the work to make sure that like the consequences can actually be meaningful, and that the regulations actually deter behavior. Because like when people violate in this particular field, people are hurt. Like it affects your health when people are consistently violating whatever the statutes are. So what's DEP stance moving forward with increasing regulations or better enforcement to deter behavior?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for the sake of our listening audience, this very question is how you and I got to really know each other over the past year that I've been in this particular role. Because when the law was passed a year ago, it didn't go into effect immediately. The law does not go into effect until there are rules adopted. So it goes from the process of having the governor sign a law to then figuring out, how do you take this law and figure out how do you implement it in a day-to-day function? And that's what a rulemaking process does. So since from October until June, for 8 months, we had stakeholder meetings, public stakeholder meetings, that even in the pandemic, we held the meetings over Zoom. And we have the recordings of all those meetings on our Office of Environmental Justice website for anyone who wants to see the different topics that we hit. And they want to just know where things are, they can get a really good sense there. We just finished that rulemaking public engagement process in June, and we have a rulemaking team in the department that is going through the granular work of spelling out what does that actually look like to step up what we already do from an environmental regulation perspective. And those rules will be presented to the public. We anticipate sometime this fall.
Okay.
And once they're issued in the fall in the New Jersey Register, the public will then be able to engage with us on what the content of those rules are. So we welcome continued feedback at the point in time that those rules are presented in the Register to help us get the best possible outcome to serve our overburdened communities.
Yeah, because it's just important for us, because our protests, the data of what's happening to our community, none of that has been enough to deter behavior. So we need the DEP. We need our governing agencies to step up and really enforce things so that our community can feel that we're being protected. Because right now we don't really feel protected. This is exciting to learn that, the rulemaking process is taking in the feedback of the community. This is exciting that you actually are taking those things into account. And it also gives us the opportunity to hold the DEP accountable, because if you're saying you're listening to us and we're telling you what we want, when the final product, if it doesn't match what we're asking for, then that gives us an opportunity to have dialogue about that as well. So we appreciate that. So now I want to ask, because we're speaking about the things DEP can do, what would you say are some of the misconceptions about what the DEP is able to do? If it's, a lot of times your agency may get blamed for things. What are some of the things that are just out of the range of your abilities that people may be unaware of?
Right. So across state government, there are a number of agencies that touch on things that look like environmental protection, and they certainly are environmental issues, but they may not be our regulatory jurisdiction. So for example, a matter might be handled by the Department of Health or the Department of Community Affairs or Department of Transportation, Department of Education, Board of Public Utilities, and a whole suite of others. Mm-hmm. So we do have a specific lane of regulations and management that we are responsible for ourselves directly. But, even if something comes to our department that isn't us, I'm hopeful that, we're all collectively a resource to help point people in the right direction. I will say that one of the things we're trying to further through the work of the Interagency Council under the umbrella of the administrative order, not the administrative order, the executive order, EO 23, is to like have more dialogue between our departments and agencies to understand that when environmental injustices happen in communities, they don't always happen in these neat little boxes where it's just one department or one regulatory program. It's often pretty complex. And so we have to be prepared to respond in kind to the way that it is experienced on the ground. So I'm really pleased to say there's a great level of commitment across all the departments and agencies for that. So that is one limitation, though, that we only have a certain umbrella of influence. The other thing is that the law does not address every type of permit that DEP issues. DEP issues thousands of types of permits.
Right.
And so there's only a subset that was identified in this law, and that was a long-standing joint effort between community groups, between our legislature and our staff here at the Department of Environmental Protection. But, you know, we're the first state in the nation to do such a thing, where there's actually a law to effectuate the need for change. So that is a limitation of the law, that it does not address every type of permit that we issue.
Right. So, and again, we're well aware that anything that's done first is going to have its hiccups, it's going to have its shortcomings. It's a work in progress. So we appreciate, you know, that it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time to get this right. And you have the support of the NACP in this process. But also, we want to be a part of different processes. The stakeholders in our community, the different meetings, the different councils, the different commissions. We want to be a part of that. But one of the biggest impediments to that is we're a volunteer organization, and then the different boards require additional time. So what we're curious about, bless you, is are you able? We would like to see these boards diversified further. It definitely needs to be more diverse councils when it's speaking about things that are impacting our community. But in addition, we feel that there needs to be some stipends, there needs to be some remuneration so that people can be compensated for the time that they're away from their family, because this is usually like a commitment on top of many other commitments. Has there ever been any conversation about having compensation for these different boards? And is that something that is a possibility?
So I heard you ask two questions within what you just articulated. The first is about the need to diversify our boards, councils, and commissions. And I will note that that is a part of the scope of Executive Order 23. So with it being in an executive order, that means it comes from the governor. And so it's the governor's expectation that we do more to diversify our boards, councils, and commissions. So it's not just our departments and agencies, it's also that further reach. And I'll tell you that I myself, while we're trying to figure out how we do this strategically across all of state government, that I've been trying to adopt this approach myself. So one example I'll give is a workforce that I invited the state NAACP to be a part of with Liberty State Park. So our commissioner issued an administrative order that's focused on creating a design work group to help further the work for the interior. And in looking at the composition of that particular board, I was very intentional to make sure that there's a good representation from different races, different genders, different sectors, to further our conversation, because we can see just from a process like that the state NAACP was a part of in our public meetings, you gain so much more when you bring all the voices to the table. It strengthens us. It strengthens our outcomes, and it's more inclusive. It just puts us all in a better place. So we're already trying to be an example for that with that, and we're looking to carry that out also with other boards, councils, and commissions across all of state government. With regard to the compensation has long been a conversation, because just for the very reason that you said. So to be continued with that, but I certainly appreciate you bringing it up. And I know that in the meantime, what we really try to do is to be sensitive to the times that we schedule meetings, particularly when we know that there are community organizations or people like yourself and other members of the NAACP who have jobs during the day, and the evening is better for you.
Right.
So we can be inconvenienced. And frankly, it's not an inconvenience. It enhances our work to just expand how we go about our operations, particularly within COVID. We're doing some hybrid work, from home, working from home, working in the office, like work from home, and, be available to serve the public so that they can be more so engaged.
And we appreciate that because at the end of the day, and this is what we're trying to get across to all our constituents, environmental justice impacts every aspect of our lives. So it's something that we should all be paying attention to, and we should all be getting involved with. But as more people become involved and more people get to those tables, we understand that there's a racial wealth gap in New Jersey. So when you're expecting people to do everything because of passion, that's not realistic in a very expensive state like New Jersey. These governing bodies need to provide funding so that these voices can be at the table. Because if you don't provide that, then that's showing that you really don't have a commitment to having these voices at the table. So we appreciate the diversity. We like those steps, but we want to continue that conversation about remuneration, because like even with the Liberty State Park, that's twice a month. You know what I mean? Like that's a commitment. And to commit to twice a month for free is tough when you add everything else that you're doing. So we really appreciate you for taking the time out, Deputy Commissioner Glenn.
Absolutely.
We love how transparent the DEP has been within this last year that I've been observing it. Very transparent, very open, allowing the feedback. And we appreciate that these opportunities to have these conversations, because you have a job to do and we have a job to do. And we like to be able to communicate, because there's going to be times that we're not going to be on the same page. But as long as we have respect for one another, we can advocate for our community. So I thank you so much for your time. And if you had anything else that you wanted to share with the constituents before we end, feel free to go ahead.
Well, I thank you just so much for this time. And I really just want to make sure that I'm a resource to you. So certainly at any time, feel free to reach out to me. We also have a team. We have a director of environmental justice who recently joined us. Her name is Candace Perry, who just came to us. So we're building our capacity within the department to be able to do this work even further. So with any inquiries with regard to environmental justice or equity, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you so much again for this invitation to be a part of this conference today.
Thank you so much, because representation matters, and we're very proud that you are in that position. So thank you so much for your time, Deputy Commissioner Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you.